Iowa State was about 50 feet and a miracle away from today's conversation being, 18-2. How good is this team? What can they do in the tournament? Instead, we're talking about all of the issues that Iowa State has today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, for our Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day as we break down the Cyclones, the ins, the outs, the who's, the whats. You know it. You love it. If you are not subscribed, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we will be talking all men's basketball. The road trip as a whole, obviously the loss to Arizona, and then we'll go, kind of into the future a little bit. What can this team do? How can they bounce back? That kind of thing. Before we get that far, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Now, as it says in the side piece here, if you're watching on YouTube, not Houston, but Ames, we may have a problem. There might be more than one thing going on with this team. Iowa State loses to Arizona 86-75 in overtime. I don't have a segment in this where I talk specifically about one game, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this game in particular. This one hurt, fellas and ladies. This one really, really, really hurt. I stayed up to the wee hours of the night. Just literally, are you kidding me? Just to watch Caleb Love hit a 48-footer as time expired. Oh, that one hurt. And that's going to happen in sports. That's how it goes. But admittedly, when that shot went in, I did not have too much hope for overtime. I mean, the amount of momentum you gain, and now you don't win every game after you make a half-court shot like that, but still, you could just feel it. And Arizona, tough place to play. Arizona, tough team to play. Obviously, now 8-1 in the conference, kind of starting to separate with Houston, and that's something we'll talk about more. But that shot in particular, and the way that the whole game kind of unfolded the last few minutes, there were some heroes on Iowa State side for sure. Damarian Watson being one of them. I thought he made some huge plays at the end of that game, especially with his sole block coming in the last few minutes there. And you could point to any one of these guys, really. Curtis Jones did struggle, 1 of 11 in this game. Now, there are a couple points here. Obviously, Joshua Jefferson, if he makes both free throws, we're not having this conversation today, but he went 2 of 3 on the night. You can't be upset about one free throw. Okay, you just can't. This was a hard-fought battle all the way through 71-71 at the end of regulation. You can't come out in overtime and only score 4 points to the opponent's 15. You just can't do that. The way overtime went didn't make any sense to me. And we'll talk more about the problem kind of that I saw explicitly, very blatantly in overtime, but of course throughout the course of the game as well in a second. But that game was obviously amazing. If you're anyone besides an Iowa State fan, and if you're an Arizona fan, they'll never probably forget that. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And the way that Caleb Love had been playing, no hate, but oh my gosh, I think he had one. He was like 1 of 11 at that point and makes a 50-footer. A lot of arguments online saying we got a foul there. We got a foul. I don't actually hate that, especially if the ball is inbounded to Caleb Love. You're going to say that you'd rather foul a Caleb Love from 50-plus feet, give them the opportunity to make the first free throw, get the rebound, and put in a essentially put back to tie it up and go to overtime versus take your chances on a Caleb Love 50-plus footer, and he sneaks into 48 feet and makes it from there. I'm completely okay with how that game played out. A lot of people criticizing TJ's kind of how he went about that. I actually don't hate it. I think that was played as about as good as it could have been. And we just got really, I don't want to say unlucky because it's an unbelievable play made by Caleb Love. But man, it fires me up. I'm genuinely trying to keep myself calm right now because it was such an amazing ending. And as much as it hurt, I watched the end of that game and then I couldn't go to bed. My blood pressure, I could feel it up. My heart rate was up. Like I was just, oh, that one hurt, man. That one hurt. I really wanted that one. Okay, so that being said, the issues. There are a couple main issues that this team it's kind of becoming apparent or more clear. On the road, obviously, not as strong as at home. Now, that's never going to be. It's pretty rare that a team is better on the road than they are at home, especially in Big 12 basketball. Two very important sections of that. Big 12 basketball, right? One of the toughest conferences to play in, and obviously on the road in a college environment. On top of, I mean, nobody is. It's very hard to be better on the road than it is at home. But Iowa State, I feel like we see a notable difference on the road. That being said, that's kind of like the 1B or even like 2 in the order of things here of issues. Number 1, in my opinion, is turnovers. This Iowa State team, it has the potential to be so good. I mean, in my opinion, one of the best teams we've ever seen roll through Ames, right? You got like the 1999 to 2001 kind of area as well. But this team, very different. Obviously missing a Milan right now. So the way things are going to go is a little bit different. But you stay toe-to-toe with an Arizona team really until even that game was theirs if Joshua Jefferson makes that final free throw, which no knock on JJ there. Sometimes you're just not going to hit him. I mean, I know if I shot 5,000 shots in an empty gym, I'd probably only make about 70. So I am not criticizing Joshua Jefferson for missing that 3. I actually thought as Curtis Jones squished both of his, I was like, how are they doing this? Like, this is remarkable. That being said, if he makes that, we're having a totally different conversation. So Iowa State very much in this game, and then to be blown out essentially in an overtime 4-15. I thought the play in that overtime was more than sloppy. I mean, I think we had like 3 straight turnovers, and at one point I think we're just trying to play hero ball right now. Curtis Jones and yes, Keyshawn Gilbert had an unbelievable ending to that game with that deeper-ish 3 and his drive in off the bank. I mean, yes, Keyshawn Gilbert was kind of our driving force in this one, had 17 points. Taman Lipsey with 18 had a bit of a rougher second half. But that being said, Keyshawn Gilbert was kind of the guy, but it felt like it became the Keyshawn Gilbert show. A lot of over dribbling in the lane. You got 3 guys around you. You got 3 guys on you. That means 2 people are potentially open. Definitely, I would say 1. Now, I know it's harder on the hardwood than it is here sitting behind the mic as things are nice and, well, it's not that nice outside, but certainly nice in my room. I get it. But we have to, it felt like offensively things broke down rather quickly. Even if you don't shoot that well, it just felt like the way they were going about offense, obviously then they lead into turnovers, was bad. It was a very bad situation. Arizona with 13 steals on the night. And I would venture to say even, I don't have the exact number. I could pull it up on Big 12, but I don't have my keyboard in front of me. I would say almost 5 of them probably were in overtime. It was ridiculous. And the shots we were putting up in overtime were not good shots. And then Arizona got a lot of open looks. And this is a D1 college, very good basketball team. They're going to make a lot of those. Now, obviously, Iowa State D1, very good college basketball team, didn't make as many of those, and that's just going to happen. You know, you're going to have on nights, you're going to have off nights. Joshua Jefferson, 1 of 4 from 3. Curtis Jones went 0 of 8 from beyond the arc. Outside of that, I mean, Taman Lipsey, 3 of 7, but he's not really known as a shooter, so I'm not really too surprised by that. I am slightly alarmed by 66% from the free throw line as a team. I know the comment I just made earlier about me not being able to shoot them, but that's why I'm sitting here and I'm not out there practicing. As much as I hate to say it, you expect a little bit better than 66% from the line. But overall, I mean, I don't know, man. It just felt like literally all of the energy from that Iowa State had was zapped out completely to 0 when that 50-footer went in. Because it was like, I don't know, man. And I also saw, well, what if Joshua Jefferson misses the second free throw? They don't, it just becomes a scramble. And like, how does that, I don't know. Things, the way they played out, that U of A chant sounded like USA to me. Just felt like Stars and Stripes were behind Arizona, and that one, especially in overtime. And that one hurt, man. That one hurt. That one certainly hurt. That being said, that wasn't the only game played on this road trip for Iowa State. We're going to break down the road trip as a whole, obviously, if you include the Arizona State game, and then just the road trip as a whole from a bigger picture. Was it a success, and what could come of this moving forward? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. Tails never fails. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Iowa State loses to Arizona 75-86 in a heartbreaker is really the only way it can be described. That being said, that was not the only game Iowa State played on the road in the last couple days. They also played Arizona State. I don't know why I put emphasis on Arizona. It should be on State. Arizona State. They won 76-61. We'll talk about that here in a second. You're here Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's been a second. Let's talk about it. Iowa State comes away with a win over Arizona State. Interesting win here. I'll just talk about it for a second. This game very much neck and neck. Arizona State going up by, 7 at the half. And then, honestly, it was a 1-point game with, 5 minutes? 5:30, 5:15. Iowa State led by 1. And then Arizona State hits one more 3. And Iowa State, they hit more than that. 59. So what would that be? About 20. So 17 points to Arizona's 3. I'm not doing the math right now, but it's about that. Either way, Iowa State ran away with the end of that one. Curtis Jones, obviously, big game for him in that one. 33 points. Pretty unbelievable, actually. Had the Arizona game not gone the way it did, very much in Big 12 player, in my opinion, of the year category. Played 40 minutes and shot 10 of 22 from the floor, 5 of 10 from beyond the arc, 50%. Pretty solid. I'm not here to really talk about this Arizona State game as much. Unfortunately, I didn't get a whole episode to break that down. We talked a little bit of football with Drake Toll on Monday. Shout out Locked On Big 12. But the point of this segment is really, was the trip to Arizona a win or a loss? Well, that's two options. Excuse me. And if I had to pick one, I would say it's a win, but it feels like a loss. It does. Obviously, the loss to Arizona was a huge one. We don't play Arizona again. Now, I'll name off the remaining teams really fast. Skip ahead like 8 seconds if you don't care. Kansas State, Kansas. We'll go. Home Kansas State, at Kansas. Home TCU, at UCF. Home Cincinnati, Colorado, at Houston, at Oklahoma State, home Arizona, BYU, at Kansas State. Good thing I read them off. We do play Arizona again, so that will help, but we only play Houston one time in Houston. So your shots at the top right now are looking pretty slim. Now, obviously, you can hope. You can kind of leave it into the hands if you're wanting to come away with the top record in the Big 12. Is that necessary? I don't necessarily think so. You are potentially hurting your chances at a 1 seed in the tournament, but March is March, and I don't know how much a 1 seed, you know what I mean? Like 1, 2, it doesn't matter what your seed is, I guess, other than you're playing tougher teams. But if you're the best team in the nation, then like you still have to win the same amount of games. So I just don't see, we're not fighting for a bye here. But I will say, obviously the win over Arizona State, it felt like one where it was like, we can beat you with Curtis Jones. Obviously there's more to that game than just Cujo going for 33, but coming away late in that one, getting some momentum. I will say the loss to Arizona feels just like a kick in the shorts. It really does. And I don't know how this team will respond. It's the same thing we said after the West Virginia loss. The difference being obviously West Virginia not the top of the Big 12 standings. And this team will bounce back. Maybe we'll put up 200 against Kansas State, or obviously we'll play at Kansas and maybe we put up 108 there. I couldn't tell you exactly what will happen. I just know that it's going to come down to the rebound here, because we're not at the end of the season, right? This isn't the last game. This isn't the Big 12 tournament. This isn't the first round of the playoffs of the March Madness tournament, national championship, right? We are still actually currently at January 28th. It's not even February yet. We got a long ways to go. So I'm not like hit the panic button yet. I still think this was a success overall. Played very well against Arizona. Unable to close out the game. Yes, slightly concerning. The turnovers are certainly something that I don't love. I don't love how the offense can break down at times. We've seen it all year, and I don't want to hear it was just one game, because I know that this one has been happening all year. We're getting a lot of stagnancy on offense, a lot of guys over dribbling. That's leading to the turnover. That is certainly concerning. But overall, I'd say as a whole, that's, I guess, probably a win. You go 1-1. If you go 0-2, it's absolutely a loss. You win them both, absolutely a win. This is like 50-50 territory. I feel like the loss to Arizona holds a little bit more weight, seeing as where Arizona is in standings compared to Arizona State. Or excuse me. Well, yes, Arizona State, but my other train of thought was on West Virginia. But, I don't know, man. They're both away. You play Arizona State away. You win that one, especially you come away with that one late. You can see that this team can win them late. They just didn't get it done against Arizona. They almost did. 2.2 seconds, 48 feet. An absolute heave, a miracle. Like, the sound it made when it went, it fires me up. I caught myself watching March Madness highlights from the last 15 years the other day, and I was like about to jump through a wall. And this one, it happened to us, to me, to the Cyclones. I've been hurt by this team so many times, and it hurts so bad. But it was still like, I cannot believe he made that shot. Like, 48 feet? Just heaved it. Oh, my. So, you got to give credit where it's due. And I don't think that in most circumstances, out of 100 times, with Caleb Love shooting that ball, going 1 for 11 prior to that, he makes it more than 3 or 4 times. That exact situation. I think Iowa State wins that one like 95% of the time. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards this isn't necessarily a loss of a road trip. I do think overall we played. You ignore overtime, which you can't do. But if you ignore overtime, we played a solid 2 games against an Arizona State, which it feels like a budding rivalry, and against Arizona, a very good team in the Big 12 right now. We'll have to see what happens. Obviously, a lot of games before it, but Houston will play on the road, and then we get Arizona at home. That's for the next segment. I'm gonna leave it there. But either way, I'm still just thinking about that shot. Like it played in my dreams over and over, and I woke up, albeit late because of the late game. Not sure why we're starting games so late. And it was just like all I could think about, man. Kudos. Shout out. It's just impossible. Should he have gone for the foul? In my opinion, no. Let him take that shot. And you're going to get beat sometimes when you just let him take that shot. And we still played pretty good defense too. You can't let him get 3 free throws there. You can't foul once he's shooting. So you have to let him shoot. Shout out to that guy. Unbelievable. Simply unbelievable. That being said, that's all the past, right? That is all things that have happened. We're talking about prior events. Now let's look into the future, into that crystal ball. Can Iowa State bounce back? Can this team recover? Can we still snag a 1 seed, a Big 12 title, maybe even a national title, cut down the nets in April? We'll talk about it coming up right after this. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Iowa State goes 1-1 on the road trip to Arizona, facing Arizona State in Arizona. I will try not to talk about the tragic loss anymore in Tucson. Okay. I apologize for talking about it as much as I did. Admittedly, an unbelievable shot. We're going to leave it at that. Iowa State falls apart in overtime. Question now is, we've talked about the past. What are we doing in the future? How is Iowa State going to handle moving forward? You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And guess what? I believe in this team. Okay, I do. Lost to West Virginia. You get 2 wins. You lose to Arizona. Maybe this is the lowest this team has been, obviously, since their loss to Auburn. Only their 4th game of the season. I will say, there are, as I've mentioned, things that this team does, things that the parts of this team that are very /slightly /not at all /super concerning. Okay, I've got it all across the board. I'm bought in on this team, okay? That being said, the concerns aside, if you don't worry about those, this team's going to win national championship. But I think that those honestly are small enough in the grand scheme of things. Think of a pie chart, it's just a little sliver. I think this team's going to be fine. Now, on top of that, I'd like to make the point, I'd rather lose to an Arizona now than to an Arizona at home on March 1st. Between the two, I just would. Momentum-wise, obviously at home versus away, the manner in which we lost to Arizona, I've talked about it already, but it really came down to just a heave, not a botched play on defense, not a error, really, other than maybe the missed free throw prior to that. And you could break down the last few minutes of that game. There were a couple of mistakes made for sure. But overall, came down to a heave. Sometimes that's going to happen. I think this team will be just fine. Now, when does Milan come back? That is something that is now on the top of everyone's minds. Everyone is thinking about it, for sure. But the team, as it stands right now, still very solid 8-man rotation. Damarian Watson stepping in. And there's a chance we see more of Watson with Milan back. Damarian Watson against Arizona State played 22 minutes, may have only come up with 3 points, did have 3 rebounds, a block, and a turnover, yes, but still solid minutes. And then you look against Arizona, we got 13 minutes, 5 points, the block I talked about, did have a turnover, 4 rebounds, and it's kind of one of those things where we talk about Taman Lipsey all the time. It's not going to show up so much in the box score. That's how I feel about Damarian Watson. He plays and he makes the plays at the right times. The block against Arizona was crucial. Plays solid D. The way this team plays together, it's not all in the box score. And I am very much a person who can get tied up in the box score. Can look at all the numbers and dive into those and make my conclusions off of a 6 or a 7 versus a 2 or a 3. That happens to me. Okay. I'll admit it, hand up. But this team kind of operates differently. This team they play for each other, right? It's more than just the numbers to these guys. Which is why, yes, the vibe being low is slightly concerning, but they can turn it around and they can beat you in so many ways. We've seen it. Maybe it's Cujo, Keyshawn, when Milan's back, team-wise, defense, score 108. They can do it all. We just need to see them piece it together. Now, while I'm never a fan of losing, and I know my blood pressure was well over freaking, 180 over 130 during the game, ridiculously high. I wanted to see them win. Losses teach you things. You can't lose. You can't fail and just do the same thing over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. I hate it, but losing teaches you things. In Iowa State, losing to West Virginia, losing to Arizona, TJ has got to be the greatest head coach in the history of ever. And I know he will be a guy that's like, all right, look, this is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. And I will say, as many times as a coach just says things to you, sometimes it doesn't stick. Sometimes you need to see it. And this Iowa State team now has seen the L in conference play twice. And you feel it, right? Cujo said, I like winning. I like the feeling of winning. Well, okay, you do. But now we've seen the losses too. Now we know what those feel like. Now we know what to avoid. We know what not to do. This team's only going to get better through these losses. Now, if we lose to Kansas State, lose to Kansas, lose to TCU, lose to UCF, rip off a few losses, full-on panic alarm, I will install a hanging red swinging light behind me and just play it the entire show. I have no problem doing that. But at this point, as it stands, I'm not that concerned, keyword that concerned, about West Virginia and Arizona losses. This team absolutely can turn it around. Playing a bit of a weird schedule here. And when we looked at this, going into the Arizona State stretch here, that 5-game stretch, a lot of people were hoping for 4-1, maybe 3-2. We're on track for that. We can beat Kansas State. I think we will. Kansas will be a tough one away, obviously. And then TCU, and then you get UCF again. And we're kind of, you get UCF, Cincinnati, Colorado, then you get Houston, right? So we're kind of in like phases here. And this current phase, we're on track to do what people thought we could do. 4-1, 3-2. I'm not panicking yet. Not yet. This team can do it. They can turn it around. They can learn from their mistakes. And I'd rather have a loss now and then rip off, what would that be? 3, 6, 9, 11 wins in theory. Makes sense, I think. Because yeah, that makes sense. Hopefully I'm good at counting. I don't know. It took me 3 tries to get through kindergarten. Being said, this team's good, okay? Let's not let the loss to Arizona get to our heads. This team is very good. Yes, they are still struggling without Milan. Yes, they are still struggling through a few different points. But overall, I'm not too concerned. We're gonna be okay. Okay. We're gonna be just fine. Oh, but man, what a loss. That one hurt. I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more. That one certainly hurt. Okay. Thank you for making it to this point. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Prove it's Cyclone State along with myself. Come back tomorrow. We're going to talk some TJ Otz's thoughts, obviously, after the loss to Arizona. A couple things we'll have to break down there. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.